The Tic-Tac is man-made, says Stephen Greer. Really? He says a lot of things, and he has some really interesting stuff to say, and there's some wonderful witnesses that have come forward in his presentation. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about some of it. It's a very long presentation that he and the others give, and I don't have time to get into it all in one video. This is definitely a multi-video situation because there's a lot to unpack here. There's a whole lot. There's a whole lot. But let's talk about a little bit of it. So get in here. This is Jack with the Cosmic Road. I talk about UFOs and the paranormal. Please hit like, please subscribe, share on social media, and let me know what you think in the comments below. Now, of course, we have our own UFOs. I've talked about that many times on the channel. I think the evidence shows that we've had those since at least the 60s. So, and we got there not by reverse engineering the stuff necessarily, but by possibly even working with the beings. That is according to some of the research. From what I can see, Greer doesn't go into any of that. He doesn't seem to think that we're working with the beings. It's the humans that are the baddies, and that the, ETs or the non-humans are all the good guys. And that, we're shooting them down and reverse engineering their technology, and they're very concerned about us. And, that may very well be the case, or at least part of it. But I do think that he is missing a big part of the big piece of the puzzle. And there's certain things that he may not even allow himself to think about. But, let's just see what he has to say about the Tic-Tac, and we'll go from there. Here goes.
This is the so-called Tic-Tac now.
Nickel 6-1 Tango Roger, Roger.
Oh, go ahead!
Roger.
Now, of course, this has been called an unknown U.A.P., what have you. We can excuse the Pentagon and most of the military and the White House and the Congress for not knowing what this is, because the operations that have been building these are deep black illegal, and they are not disclosing it properly to the authorities in our constitutional democracy and republic. This is based on a sighting of a group of people. It's basically the same object in the 1960s, 1967. Let's go to the next slide. And it's sort of a sketch here, the so-called vintage steam boiler. These have been seen in multiple places around since the 1950s and 60s. Next. Here's one that's a very good color illustration of it. Notice the probes on it. Extraterrestrial vehicles do not have those. These electrostatic discharge objects. We're not going to get into all the physics of this. Our team understands it, and we're welcome to share that in a longer brief with media folks. And here's the 2004 off the coast of San Diego Tic-Tac. It's fundamentally the same object. Next. And here it is. We have a top secret whistleblower came forward a few months ago in 1991, so now we're talking quite some time ago, way before the 2004 event, that is offloading of a C-130, one of these UAPs, but it's actually a man-made one, and here you have the color illustration. This man is very afraid to come forward. He was warned not to, and at one point was told he would be, quote, executed. Next.
Well, you may have noticed that that wasn't the Tic-Tac. That was the Go Fast video. So, that, right there is not starting off on a strong footing with his argument that, the Tic-Tac is man-made if the video he's showing isn't even the Tic-Tac. Of course, you could say that one of his assistants just put in the wrong video, and that's entirely possible. It could have been an innocent mistake. TTSA made a couple of mistakes in their initial presentation as well, and I don't really hold that against him. Of course, if he was watching the video at the same time as he was talking about it, which he seemed to be, because sometimes he would say no, advance to the next frame when they hadn't advanced fast enough. The next slide. So he seemed to be aware of what was being presented, and he didn't call that out. So I found that interesting. Maybe he was just nervous. I would be too in a big live event like that. So but that is worth noting. So could the Tic-Tac be man-made? Well, sure, it could. It was a funky-looking little thing with little stubby things sticking out of it. Not the smooth, elegant ships that you normally get with the UFO encounters. The without no rivets, no anything. So, but does that make any sense? I mean, I guess it's possible, but does it make any sense? According to Kevin Day, there were possibly 100 of these objects over the course of a week, in the same vicinity as the Nimitz and the other ships, as the Nimitz was gearing up for its big training exercise that was ultimately canceled because of the Tic-Tac incident. And these craft were coming and going from sea level to space all the time. Kevin Day said they were raining UFOs. So, and they were also possibly coming out of a bigger ship in the ocean. I don't think it's been confirmed that they were coming out of it, but they were certainly interacting with it. And, Commander David Fravor says that's how they initially saw the Tic-Tac, was because they saw the big object in the water, about the size of a submarine, but not actually a submarine. And so does that behavior sound possible or logical? Why would humans do that? How does that make any sense? I mean, you almost have to have an inhuman motivation to do that. And some will say, well, maybe they are trying to see if our sensors can sense them, since we had a newly installed sensor apparatus leading up to that. So, and that is totally valid. That is possible. However, I'm not quite buying that. 100 ships going from sea to space over a week just to test our sensor apparatuses, apparati. That seems a little excessive. That doesn't seem to make any sense. If they just wanted to test the new sensors, they could just send one craft in to see if we pick it up. Maybe send a few in there. Now, does it look like some of those older UFOs or U.A.P? Yeah, it really does. It really does. And we absolutely have our own ships. I'm 100% convinced of that. Could the Tic-Tac be one of them? Again, yeah, maybe. But I'm not quite buying it. I don't think it makes sense. If we have ships, we are doing something with them that makes sense to the people that are doing them. And I don't think this activity makes sense. But if new information comes out that this was indeed the case, that this was a man-made object, I will, happily accept that. But at the moment, I'm not accepting it. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you think this was a man-made object? Greer had a lot of interesting things to say, and again, I don't have time to go into it all in one video, but there was one point where he seemed to issue a sort of ultimatum to the government to disclose or else.
I want to use my words carefully here. A clock, I understand, has been put on this getting resolved through hearings and other means, and by the end of this year, it needs to be resolved. And that's all I will say at this point.
That was really interesting, right? What? Does he have some blackmail that he's using on these guys? If you don't disclose, or else I will do X. What was that about? I think that his CE5 sessions do demonstrate that he has an affinity and a connection with the phenomenon. I genuinely believe that. When he calls them, they come. And he's even developed the protocol on how you can call them. And it works. I haven't used his exact protocol, but I've used similar protocols. And so could he be conspiring with the beings to launch some sort of event if the government doesn't disclose? I doubt it. But hey, everything's on the table. There's a lot more to talk about. There really is. And so I need to make more videos and talk more about this because there is so much to go over. And all the witnesses are fantastic, and there truly is some amazing information that they put out there. With the Stephen Greer stuff, I don't know. He has his own axe to grind. He has his own agenda. According to him, there's no alien abductions. That's right. The U.S. military is solely responsible for a global phenomenon going on for decades, involving likely tens of millions of people, according to the best evidence that I've seen. So that doesn't make any sense. So Stephen Greer says a lot of stuff, and he definitely has his own specific agenda that he is trying to, in his own narrative that he is trying to get across. And I don't appreciate that because I don't feel like he's going into this with an open mind. However, he does go into it with a lot of resources, intelligence, and dedication. And I appreciate that. But I don't appreciate him putting out disinformation. And when he says there are no alien abductions, period, and there are no hostile aliens or ETs or non-humans, which is what he says at least a couple of times in this press conference, then to me that is disinformation. I think the phenomenon is largely positive. I truly do. My own interactions, limited interactions, but very amazing interactions, have been extremely positive, and I think that only a minority of it is negative, but that negative stuff does exist. And we can't go into this relationship with the phenomenon blindly. We have to have our eyes open. And Stephen Greer seems to want us to have our eyes closed. And I don't think that's healthy. And I just, that really rubs me the wrong way. That's disinformation that is not serving people well. At least that's my take, but let me know what you think in the comments below, and I will definitely be doing follow-up videos on this. As much as I, have issues with Stephen Greer, I salute him for putting this together. I really do. It was an incredible thing to assemble, and there's so much to unpack and dissect in here, and some really juicy stuff and some alarming stuff. So I look forward to giving you my thoughts on that in the days ahead, and let me know your thoughts on it below, and please give this video a big thumbs up if you would. I sure would appreciate it. Smash the subscribe button and the bell to be notified of future videos. Join me on social media. I'd love to see you guys there, and if you could share this video on social media, that would be super groovy. There are plenty of other videos to check out on the channel, and until next time, this is Jack with Cosmic Road, signing out.